for like, I think since this came out to go see us.
All right, we would like to call this meeting, the Special Board of Education work session in the School District of West Dallas, West Milwaukee to order, please. Suzette, can you do the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Ustra.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Stickis.
Present.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Present.
Ms. Cole. Here. Mrs. Jessup.
Here.
President Emmett.
Here. All right, so we will begin with our Recreation and Community Services update.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to come and review our 2017-2018 annual report. This is sort of a look back on all that we accomplished in last fiscal year. And with me tonight are two program managers, Linda Gritzmacher and Amanda Schwittenberg. Kind of have a combination of illness and deer hunting going on in our office. So our team's a little slim tonight. So one thing I want to point out on our front cover is our activity guide, and I know it was highlighted in the last newsletter, but one of our new initiatives and something we've been working on, we've always done our activity guide in-house. And for anybody that's ever come down to our office during that time period, it's a very strenuous time. None of us are marketing majors or graphic designers, but we've always done the best we could with what we had to work with. Well, we were approached by, when we used to have Boys and Girls Club, one of my old Girls Club members, she went to Mitchell and then Franklin Wright and then Nathan Hailstone alumni, who's currently a community resident and a business owner, and said, hey, I get your guide, I might be able to help you guys out. And when we looked at what the amount of time our staff spends and that effort and energies, we are far further ahead by employing her services. So you will see our next guide that comes out for winter, spring, dramatically different. So we are really super excited. And although I kept saying to our staff throughout the whole process, I don't want to discredit anybody or feel like we're taking away, but all of them are like, no, this is so much better. So we're excited about that, but that'll be yet to come. So I want to talk a little bit about, because it's something I truly believe in, is our staff makes our programs. And our program management staff believes that too. We can make anything sound good, look good in our guide, but it's our people. And our people are, we have 13 full-time staff in our administrative office, myself, 7 managers, 4 administrative assistants, and 1 person out in the field. Our facilities of support does a lot of cleaning and building setups for us. And even since this picture, as I said, this is a snapshot of last year. We have 3 new staff that we're really excited to add to our team. We have a new office manager, Cassie Stanton, who was previously with us in our front office, left to go to corporate world, realized I love this a lot better. And so when Beth Perzak retired, Cassie became our office manager. Bobby Foreman's our new out-of-school time program manager, and came in right as we were starting our before-school action program and really took off and running and is just doing a phenomenal job out in the field with the after-school programs. And then Katie Lindgren is new to our office. She's also a former alumni, and used to work for us in our after-school programs and our camps, so we're excited to have her on our team too. So faces have changed. Our largest employee group is our before and after-school action staff. In that sector alone, we have over 150 employees, and they really are the ones who make our before and after-school programs. We were nervous going into this school year, and it was like we had always had before school programs. We really had no difficulties staffing, so we're very pleased, and there have been no real hiccups from morning staff to afternoon staff. A lot of the sites, they're the same, but even when they're not, and there's some combinations of, the staff across district has really worked well together to make that a seamless process. Then our other programs, we have about 500 plus part-time staff on our payroll at any given time working for us. Some initiatives we've been taking with the economy the way that it is, staffing is becoming a little challenging, so we've decided to hold some job fairs. And at those job fairs, we do right on the scene, accepting applications, interviewing. We did one prior to our summer program starting, and that was our first crack at it, and we did all right with some lessons learned. But then what was really cool is our before and after school program staff, some that helped out there, wanted to do it at the end of summer for the school year hiring. And they did them right at the high schools. So they did one in the morning at Central, and then one in the afternoon at Hale, so kids that were coming to register or there for sports could go right in, apply, interview, and they got a lot of really good candidates. The other thing we're trying to do is use social media. So you'll see the young gentleman in that picture there. We grabbed a snapshot. He said, I just got hired at the rec. Posted on social media so other people could see, and hopefully that would generate some excitement. So how do we know that our staff are as wonderful as we think they are? We collect throughout the year testimonials from all over different program areas. And what really makes me proud about our team is it's across the board. It's not in any one program area or sector. From our adult sports to our camp champion, I'll talk a little bit about that later. Our swim lessons, we get positive feedback, and we share that with our staff, and we try and put that out on our Facebook and our activity guide. And we obviously get permission from people, but we ask if we can use their testimonials. And word of mouth is really too what sells our program, so we like to share those as well. Another new initiative of ours is an area that many of us are new to, and that's marketing and branding and imaging of our department and our programs. What we found, we're really surprised when we're out and about, people still don't know who we are, what we do, what we offer, and we're really trying to change that. So some strategies we're using, you'll see our mobile advertising, our new van, Operation Recreation, and I'll hold off on exactly what that is, but so one of our new vans, we took and did one of those wraps, so you see that out and about all over the place. We've taken out ads. The city now does their quarterly publication, and we put in there a lot of pictures and then also some did you knows, just fun facts for people in the community. We gave our Facebook page a new update. About a year ago, our Facebook page kind of crashed, went down, and we had to create a new one. And for the longest time it said, check out our new. And I said, well, at some point we're no longer new. So we did some work, and we have our mascot on there and our logo. And then the other thing is when we're out at events, we get invited to a lot of different community events or things. And so we got our tent. Everything you'll see now has our logo. We shorten up our name. That's always been a huge challenge. West Dallas, West Milwaukee, WAWM RCS is what we use in incorporating that and trying to get people to help identify. I've weaved it in there. A new strategy of ours that we're working on as an administrative team is being business-minded but service-oriented. We are there to serve, but we also operate as a small business. Our mission statement, providing rec experiences and learning opportunities. So how do we measure what we do? We collect data throughout the year, and I tell my staff I'm kind of a data geek, and I want to see the numbers. So last year we served over 23,000 people throughout our programs. Our largest youth age group are those ages 5 to 8. You can see they make up a huge chunk of our participants. So when we talk about marketing and who we're targeting, obviously we're not advertising to the 5 to 8-year-olds, but parents. And we also, Lauren, our office, does a lot of tracking of our Facebook, who's on there, when they're on there, so then we know when to target specific programs. Our largest adult age group we serve is those ages 55 and over. Residents versus non-residents, you'll see first and foremost, our priority is our residents, but oftentimes non-residents help to fill a class or round out a program, and we also want to bring people in so we can showcase all the great things we do. So our non-residents make up about 10% of our participants.
Shelley, can I ask you a question now, or do you want them at the end?
I'm fine with it.
Any idea of the 2,100 non-residents, adults versus kids?
Majority are adults, and we can, through our registration software, break down where they're coming from, and it's all over. Majority that we get are Milwaukee, but then the rest is kind of scattered evenly, New Berlin, Greenfield, Brookfield, some from either further away. But yeah, the majority of our non-residents come from adults.
And more to team stuff like softball, basketball, or individual classes?
Individual classes, yeah. These numbers don't actually, we've gone to a new system. We used to do team registration for adult sports,
right.
Team registration, and then also individual participant registration. And we knew through looking at the registration cards, we used to charge a non-resident and resident fee. People were living in rapinas, people were they were making up addresses. So one of our strategies to help alleviate that was really to just go to a one flat fee. So now it's a team fee, but we've provided breaks for if a team pays their fee on their own and the majority residents, they pay a resident fee versus a non-resident fee. If they get a sponsorship, we provide a price break if their sponsor is a district, someone in the district, in the community, versus outside the district. So, so our numbers right there don't even include like all of our adult sport team registration.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Last year we offered over 1,200 different program sections, and our percentage of cancellations is at 16%, which is kind of consistent with the national average. It's higher than we would like it to be, so we would like to target about that 10%. But it's kind of good to us knowing that we're right trending with what other departments are.
What sort of strategies do you have to try to reduce cancellations?
We do a lot of what we call our rec connects. So those are emails generated right from our registration software. We can see who's taken classes in the past. We've combined classes. I'm trying to think of some of the other cancellation strategies.
So, Shelley, are you talking about, so I think that those aren't individuals canceling, those are when you have to cancel a course that you've offered.
Correct. So like if we offered and we needed like 5 people in order to break even, we only got 3.
Okay.
But my team knows when they're doing kind of their budgeting, sometimes we've seen classes, there'll be people, they always want that class, but we have to consistently cancel. Sometimes we'll let it go, even if we're going to lose a little, because we know they're going to make it up in another different program. So when they look at individual programs, then they look at all the programs in their category together, and they know which ones have to make money or not. Because the other thing too is we don't want to consistently turn people that have a specific interest away. And we've also found just historically, if it's a new class, sometimes it starts out a little slow, but once you run it once or twice, it gains some momentum.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of registration fees generated last year, we were just a little over $1 million. Our target is $900,000, so we're pleased. We have to obviously set our goal up higher for ourselves because we like to always push. But the one thing that is nice to know is that's without any significant fee increases. So it's more participants, more people taking advantage of our programs. Again, how do we know how we're doing? One thing we started last year is at the end of every session, we do a fall session, winter, spring, and a summer session. We do, again, that Rec Connect. We send out an email to everybody that's taken a class during that session, asking them to fill out our survey. We give them a time frame in which to do it, which is short. It's 2 weeks, and we found the majority of people will do it that very first day they get it. And then a week out, we send a reminder. Then who hasn't done it, we'll do it then. Otherwise, in between, they sort of forget about it, gets lost in emails. But our response rate is really pretty good. We get about 20% response, which those that work with surveys know that's a decent response. When you look at it, our 4 questions: how satisfied are you with our offerings? How satisfied are you with the level of customer service you receive? And when we talk about customer service, that extends from their first point of contact with us, whatever that may be, whoever that may be with, all the way through to the end of their experience with us. So their building supervisor, their instructor, everything across the board. How valuable are our programs to the quality of life in the community, and then if they would recommend us to a friend or family or coworker. And we're very pleased to see that our numbers are consistent pretty much across the board. And I mean, the responses are either you're not satisfied, or you're extremely satisfied. So we figured anybody that's satisfied on up is a good count to us. And when you look at our numbers, all 95% and higher, we're feeling like we're doing a pretty good job. Some accomplishments, primarily in the area of grants throughout the school year.
Sorry,
No?
brain's a little slow today. Do you have an option or do you have a spot where people can request classes for ideas for classes they'd like to see?
We do put it in our activity guide.
Okay.
And then we have, when they do their individual surveys for their program areas, they'll ask, is there other classes or things you'd like to see? so that they can see if there's trends. And we always tell people, if you don't see something in our book that you'd like us to offer, let us know. We'll try to find someone. And we also advertise if you have a special talent or skill and would like to share it, please call us. Because we'll pretty much offer any program we can. It's just trying to find the people that have the skills and talents to do it.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. When you see this, now our grants and that are not huge, but I think all these little dollar amounts add up and add to our overall budget and areas that we can provide more opportunities. Our Champion for a Child Scholarship Fund has been now named a partner of the Steve Bauer Family Foundation. And if you're not familiar, Mr. Bauer was a police, worked for the police department, and passed away a number of years ago. All of his sons went through the school district and graduated, and it's basically, they were all Hale students, but they run an alumni in like June basketball tournament, and they donate a portion of the proceeds to our scholarship fund. And now we've been named an official partner of theirs. Linda Zumbathon, I know we talked about it earlier this year, was highlighted, I think, in Dr. Lexman's recognitions. That started last year, the first ever, raised over $1,200 for Sodexo's weekend backpack meal program. And the thing that's really cool about that is they sort of organize it all on their own in terms of they get instructors that come from across the country, and they do a lot of the promotion and advertising. We kind of provide them the space and do some advertising with them. And all that goes back right into Sodexo to help feed kids on the weekends. So we got healthy kids and fit people. Then in December, Corey was awarded a $2,000 grant for our youth soccer program, and we took all that money and put it out to the principals and just asked if you know of any kids that would like to get involved in soccer, let us know and we'll take care of it. So that was successful for us. Kyle was awarded our NRPA's Active Living Everyday Grant, and that's helping to target our 55 and over population, and it's more of a class where they learn to journal their exercise, their diet, kind of puts them together like a club, so they have a little buddy system. We were awarded Community Development Block Grant funds to staff the wading pool at Liberty Heights Park again in the summer. And I'm pleased to announce we've even are ramping that up. We've got a lot of feedback that people would like to see the pool extended. We close typically second week of August. They want to see it extended all the way through the end of, to start of school year, so we're going to do that. And then weather permitting, add weekend hours. And then Amanda was awarded in April a grant from USTA to offer lessons at Liberty Heights Park. Traditionally, our lessons have always been and continue to be out at the athletic complex, bringing them down on the east side. Helps bring tennis to those kids, and those lessons then were offered free of charge, and we provided all the equipment. And then in June, we approved the construction of our new rec center. In terms of services and events, our department does a lot of things that's outside traditional rec programming. It's not just all swim lessons and sports and fitness. We are a partner of the Friends of Liberty Heights Park, and last winter we partnered with them to do hot chocolate and s'mores out in the park in the middle of winter. Linda worked with Officer Nelson, and we brought back the old officer-friendly bike rodeos this summer, helping kids learn bike safety, try to encourage more kids to ride bikes. We partner with the city, and we're on our Healthy Lifestyles Coalition in the Mayor's Challenge, and the walk that took place this year started at Liberty Heights Park and then was around in that area. Partnered with the health department. They have a fatherhood initiative to get more fathers involved and connected with other fathers in the district. So we did story time with Dad over at the rec center. And then that far picture, the little 4-block picture, is we were the hosts. Our state association, Park and Rec Association, divides the state, obviously, the regions. In our region, we hosted a summer playground in service with games and building some relationships with kids. And all the speakers were district staff. So our Phi-Ed department took charge of the games. Dave Weiss from Jefferson worked with us on PBIS and building relationships, and Laura Sage. And then also Suzette Chern did first aid. So it was nice to spotlight and bring, instead of our staff always going elsewhere, they were able to stay in the district. And then we also brought other people from other communities in. And then if you got a chance to see it, this year was the second annual Summer of Our Youth Theater, and they put on The Lion King. I'm blown away. It was amazing, and it was neat to see how many kids were involved from across the district, and they're all district kids. So we're really proud, and we're looking forward. I told Jordan and this crew, I don't know how they're going to outdo last year, but I'm sure they will. But it's neat to be able to provide, we know not all of our kids are interested in sports or fitness, but they're interested in the fine arts. And there was a part, in addition to kids being in there, he also had a program where they can learn stage crew and, so the behind the scenes and scenery. And so it's a really neat program for us in the summer now as well. Then this is just a little snapshot of all our different individual program areas in early childhood. We had over 1,500 kids participate in programs, and for us that's huge because often that's families' first experience with our district and with our department. So we really put a lot of time, effort, and energies into making sure those are positive experiences for all. Linda had their first annual 2K, tiny color run and walk. For kids ages 2 to 7 with their families. So our staff is excited to do the next one. Our out-of-school time programs, our Horseman Summer Camp received a $1,000 materials grant. And what was really cool to see with them is they put it all into what they call Take 5 areas for kids who just need a timeout. Kids maybe were a little overstimulated, needed some sensory time, and purchase materials in that for kids to just kind of pull out of camp and help cool down, settle down, or just that need to take a break. And for those that don't know, we offer 3 different camps in the summer, one at Hale, one at Horseman, and then our action days where parents can pick their day at Frank Lloyd Wright. But one thing I think that's interesting about our camp out at Hale is the enrollment in the camp out there is comparable to the enrollment at Madison Elementary School. So we almost have an entire elementary school in a summer camp. And our staff does an amazing job. Last year we had over 1,200 kids enrolled in, that was just the after-school programs, and that's almost 21% of our student population in elementary and intermediate. So a lot of kids that we're responsible for every day after school.
Shelley?
Yes.
For those camps, do you know, or do you have a breakdown of what part of the district they came from? Were they primarily West End kids? Were there some from the East?
It's spread throughout. The camp out, because each camp is very unique. The camp out at Hale, obviously they're in a high school setting, but they have access to the pool every day. For some parents, they love that. Other parents, they may not want their kids swimming on their own, and they have access to the park. So traditionally, more of our West End schools feed into that, but there's also families, if they work out that way or that, I can get a breakdown for you. Our camp at Horseman, it's a lot smaller, provides different opportunities. They spend a lot of time at Liberty Heights Park, at the wading pool there, going to the farmer's market every week they go, and kind of run a little bank where kids can deposit money into their account, and they take their account with them to the farmer's market and purchase stuff. And then our camp out at Frank Lloyd Wright, it's more geared towards parents that don't need a 5-day-a-week option. So parents there pick their days. So again, it's kind of what a parent's individual need or what works best for the individual campers. Again, Hale has about 240 kids on average every week. Horseman is right around now about 100 kids. So just looks different.
So were the numbers in after-school care similar to last year?
To the prior year? Down a little bit, yeah. But that's something that Bobby kind of has been tasked with and charged with, kind of tracking district enrollment compared to our enrollment to see if there's any trends there. And then the one thing we have noticed though is, so every day after school we have about 1,200 kids in after-school programming, but then when we do our non-school day camps, we've been only averaging anywhere from 60 to 100. So we're not really sure where kids are going on days there's no school. So he's going to be doing some outreach to parents and asking, if there is it cost, is it just parents are able to take those days off? Would they like to see something maybe that's more site-based versus we centralize it to all one location? So something we're looking at. In the area of youth enrichment, we are proud to announce that our mother-daughter tea, and I know that was also in Dr. Lexman's recognitions, Amanda's mother-daughter tea program was awarded a Silver Star from our state association. So we're excited about that. Aquatics, we have about 1,300 kids go through swim lessons, and that's just kids. That doesn't count adults that may take classes. And we continue to offer free swim class to all intermediate school age students. And we're really proud to be able to do that. A number of kids we're finding haven't had any swim experience prior to getting to the intermediate schools and then have to take it as part of a PE class. Or if you're at Lane, you don't have a pool, so that we can prepare them for high school. And it is comparable to the PE unit at the schools. Youth sports, you can see our numbers there. That's an area that we're really starting to look at. We've noticed some not significant declines, but some of our programs enrollment continues to go down year to year. And so Corey's been tasked with that and looking at our youth sport participation also in comparison to our school enrollment and tracking like class by class, because if you have a class that's small, it will continue to be small throughout, and maybe looking at how we're pairing up, grade levels to play in leagues so that we can continue to have some vibrant leagues. Also looking at what families are doing. There's a lot of opportunities out there now with sports, not only our department, but clubs and things like that. And so maybe looking at how we do things a little differently. Also these numbers don't include our non-league sports. We offer tennis, golf, and those are more put into our enrichment programs. These are all where you participate on a team in a league. Our intermediate school sports last year was our very first year and was very successful. And some notable things, Lane 6th grade boys took first place in both their league and then the end of the season tournament. And Frank Lloyd Wright 7th grade girls took first place both in their league and tournaments. And as you know, this is our first year in 2 conferences, and so far I'm pleased to report that that's going well. A couple of hiccups, but things we're working on as we learn. A couple districts committed to having 2 teams at both age levels, 7th and 8th grade. Then when the schedules came out, oops, no, we only have enough for 1. So Corey's been doing some juggling to make sure there's some balance and everybody's getting the same amount of games in. Adult enrichment, our cooking classes that we've been doing for years, and Stacy Jors, our instructor, she's like a well-known commodity throughout southeastern Wisconsin and rec departments, teaches everywhere, but our classes saw a 40% participation increase, which was huge for us. And then also our mystery trips also were awarded a Silver Star from our Park and Rec Association. And what's cool about those is they have no idea where they're going, none. And these people are willing to get on a bus. And many of them, the really cool, and Manna can speak too about this, the neat thing about it is friendships have formed. Like now they connect with each other, like, are you going? All right, or they'll look for each other on the bus and sit by each other. And also many of them come alone. So that shows us that we have people out in our community that are on their own and looking, they need that socialization. So these trips can provide that for them. So I just think it's great that adults are willing to get on a bus and have no clue where they're going and see them all excited when they open up their envelope to find out, because Amanda usually records them. Our adaptive recreation programs, we had a 17% increase in our dances, and I attribute that a lot to Kyle that oversees that program. He gets out there and he'll dance with them, he sings with them, just really has a good time and has made some good friendships, and he's just done a very nice job. The one thing we've done is we've sort of rebranded our summer, we always called our camp Summer Special Needs Camp, but now we've called it Camp Champion. And we added an 8th week, and 2 of the weeks we're starting to max out. So we're starting to have conversations like, so what happens like if we have to turn people away? We don't ever want to turn any of participants away. So, but we're limited on where we can have the camp and making sure we have staff in that. But to know that people not only in our district, but it's a camp that other districts refer their students to come and participate in. So we're excited about Camp Champion next summer. Fitness, we already talked about our Zumbathon. We have a hot new class out there, spin and yoga, and it's got a bunch of names, fusion. But people will spin for a while and then they go do yoga for a while. And it's fun as our instructors have partnered up with each other, that, I teach yoga, Linda teaches spin, and then I go take her class, she takes my class, and they work it out together to, coordinate dates and times. And then I just want to give a shout out to Kay Farber, who is celebrating her 30th year teaching fitness classes with us. And she's amazing. And she's one of those staff members that we probably don't even need to put her classes in the book anymore. People just sign up because they know it's with Kay. They want to be with Kay. And then our adult sports, that's another thing we've been looking at, and it's a trend across the state and across the country, is participation in league sports with adults is declining. And not really sure why, but I suppose if you notice that youth numbers are declining as they're going into adults, there's so many other opportunities for fitness other than competitive sports. But our 55 and over softball league, that's actually one that's growing. So we're excited about that. And basketball, we've said, where many communities have canceled their basketball leagues altogether, ours still seem to be pretty stable. And Dustin's done a nice job in kind of changing up how we schedule instead of making the seasons real long, because a lot of times it's hard for guys to commit that many weeks, family or whatever, is shortening up the seasons and offering more seasons. And then lastly, a bunch of new initiatives we took on last year. As I mentioned earlier, our Young at Heart. That's a program category that's specifically targeting people 55 and over. And Kyle started a bocce ball league, and so looking forward to continuing that, and along with a number of other programs. Entering our athletic conferences, so that's well underway this year. Operation Recreation, which I mentioned earlier, which is our giant van that has the car wrap on it. What that is it's pop-up mobile rec. So our van, our staff is loaded with the van's loaded with equipment. Our staff goes out, whether it was night out, movie nights at Liberty Heights Park, night out for West Milwaukee. They just show up and put out equipment and let kids play. And it's been really neat to see kids just being creative. You can see those blocks. They're like big giant Legos. And how kids can be creative in their thought processes, as well as there's other things that they can do for physical activity. Hula hoops, crank the music.
Ladders, things like that.
Yeah.
It's awesome to see the staff. We give them a little bit of guidance, but watch the children just go with it, and they'll take the hula hoops that are meant to go around your waist. They're setting up little tires on the ground. The blue blocks, Shelley kind of mentioned, was going over at Rudy Heights and seeing one of the kids creating a windmill with all the pieces. And I've never seen a kid create a windmill with those pieces. Instead of a big robot, he was making it where the ball dropped down, did this curve here. It was awesome to see those creativity outside, out there getting to know kids and just experiencing that way. It was cool to see Operation Recreation.
Another new initiative is our background check platform we use. It's consistent with what the district has moved to, and it has really helped to streamline, formalize, and create a process in which it's easy for us to communicate who's had them. We use it for all staff and volunteers, and it's nice. We don't have to hang on to any information. We don't have to do, other than we enter somebody's first and last name and their email address, and the company sends everything out, and people enter all their information on their own. And the turnaround time has been tremendous. They like to tell you a week. We find it's far less than that, which is great, because a lot of times, especially in youth sports, we're doing some arm twisting to get parents to volunteer for us that we can quickly check, because we want to make sure we have best qualified candidates working with our kids, keeping our kids safe. As you all know, we started our before school action programs. Like I said, they're all up and running, and it's been a seamless process. And then just this past weekend, it's been a work in progress for us, but we officially opened our Honor Garden on 68th Street. So I'd strongly encourage everybody to go down there and check it out. Maybe once the weather's a little bit nicer and it's not snow covered, but there's walking path, benches. We have a nice new sign there now. It just really will help once our rec center's built to kind of tie that whole property together. Oh.
For the before-school program, how are the numbers for enrollment on that?
We're at about, I want to say 500 students, so some of our schools where we see larger school enrollment, Walker, Franklin, Wilson, Mitchell, tend to have a little bit higher numbers. Pershing, they're maybe at 20. But we've been able to easily adjust staffing levels, move staff as needed. It's been successful. Mr. Ustruck.
Yeah, I just want to say, nice job.
Thanks.
I feel a lot of positive momentum, which is really cool, and I like the social media stuff that you're doing, and, one thing I want to recommend is to continue to push that, and this 5 to 8 year old that we're looking at 8,000 participants, and there's quite a few more that we could probably reach. So in what I do in the restaurant business is we are looking at ways at targeting kids because they really drive where you're going to go out to eat. Or, Snapchat and, all these other social platforms that these kids are using is the best way to target these kids. So if we can figure out and keep pushing that initiative and see how we can, hit this and target this area. Facebook's good for people my age and older, and LinkedIn, that's another, our YouTube channels for my kids' experience. They're watching YouTube, so if you, look into doing a YouTube channel where you're highlighting, your different programs and stuff like that, that stuff is really, really where we're going. So, and I love the marketing and the business mindset, and, it looks really awesome. Good job. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'd just say that's one of our goals for this year, because it's very difficult. We don't have one set target audience, and we found that depending on the audience, they use a different platform of getting their information. So staff has really been charged with looking at who their target audience is for a specific program area, and then how do those people want to get their information. And yeah, is it social media? Is it still a paper flyer or their guide? We still have people that want to make sure they get their guide in hand. Even if it's online, they want their paper copy. But so really looking at all the different, and then targeting in that way. And one thing we started doing is a lot of videos. Our staff will, I told them to get a little creative, either videoing themselves or videoing each other. We started Rec Joke Wednesday, kind of taking off the, bad dad joke or dad's bad jokes or whatever, kind of the corny ones. But then we start going out and employing kids to help market some of our programs as well, because we're finding, we see the different things the schools are doing, and kids are far smarter than we are and better at it than we are. So
I see you guys on Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way to go.
Mr. Bailey.
Thank you. I think we've seen vast improvements that are ongoing in your department, and it's your staff as well as you that guide and direct your people. I'm looking at some of the numbers you showed us, and it's nice to see increases when in a lot of areas there are some decreases, but I think the increase in areas is taking over some of the decrease. I'm happy to see that you're also reaching out to the people in our community that could use the extra happiness in their life. And it's a good thing. So, thank you.
Mr. Lee.
I just wanted to say that you mentioned about the grants, so all this is just small dollar amounts, but every dollar counts, and the fact that you're still applying for and searching for those grants, it shows us that every dollar that is given to you from the community is something that is going to be used to the most of its ability, and you're still looking for more so you can benefit specific programs that you can put that money towards. So I commend you on still doing that, because other departments maybe in other places might say, oh, we have lots of money in our account, we don't need to worry about getting those little $750 or whatever, who cares about that. But that goes to show that to the community as well, that you're always looking to try to do more. So if you can get that extra $2,000, extra $750 to help in a specific area, then you're going to do it, and that's, I think that shows a lot towards what your department's all about.
All right, to the next item.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always a good presentation.
Yeah, great job.
All right, well, I have a few guests with me tonight for the next one.
Bring them on over.
Where's the presentation?
On
Am I
the
missing?
top left,
Yeah.
looks like a little slide, right, up,
Up.
up, up, to, right,
Oh.
right there.
There we go. Thank you. Now that we're in this Google, I'm in.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
PowerPoint. Has my Google Slides, yeah.
There we go. All right. Well, with me tonight, and so our next presentation is on our recreation center and a construction and budget update. Oh, geez, they just feel so far away. But with me, Dan Davis from C.G. Schmidt, John Schwenzen, all right, from Growth Design Group, and Joe Clark from Growth Design Group, our architects working on our project.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Our Board of Education.
We've met.
Tonight's,
Yeah.
our agenda for tonight, we're gonna go over kind of our project goals when we initially started, just sort of review that. Our original budget that was approved by the board back in June, a preliminary project timeline, a summary of our proposed options for building and budget, an assessment of our available budget, a detailed comparison of options, and then we'll have some recommendations and discussion amongst us. So when we first started this, we had some goals in mind. One was to relocate our offices and our registration processes to better meet the needs of our customers. We know here parking is a challenge, just people getting in and out, in addition to the prospective sale of the building. We want to be able to maintain our current program space along with replacing program space that we've lost from McKinley, 1135 here, and over at Franklin Fieldhouse. We want to be able to, as we planned and mentioned before, continue to expand programs and bring in new programs, so we'd like to look at space for that. We know that it'll be a huge asset to our community, and we want to build something that we can all be proud of. Improve patron access, something that will allow, again, for future expansion. And one thing we're that we've had to look at is the use of our existing building that's there, and or not, to maximize our budget. So originally, back in June when we came, the budget that was approved was $6 million. And we wanted to be a little conservative and allow some room there. So when we went out to RFP, the budget that we provided was $5.5 million. And I'm going to turn it over now because this is where the experts really come in, and they'll address our project timeline, kind of where we're at, what we've all done. We're hoping to stay on track with our project so that we can, come spring, be breaking down.
If you remember, we had a very high-level schedule last time it came and I talked to you, so we've gotten a lot more detailed and slotted in meetings. So Joe's going to kind of run through the high-level process and then kind of get you up to speed on the schedule.
August, September, and October, we were working through the schematic design phase. So looking at basic program pieces, prioritizing, and then working with the budget to establish the various building packages that might be able to go together to meet various needs. That we were doing through October, and then as we were looking at where those budgets got us and some of the options in front of us, things kind of went on hold while continued discussions have been happening on budgets. Once direction is given for which of the options the board would like us to move forward with, we then have about 2 months left of design development, which is where we start to work with our engineering consultants to factor in all the different systems that go into the building and how those all coordinate together. And then after that, there's about another 2 months of construction documents, which is where we put together all the plans and specs with all the details and the fine print of how the building actually gets assembled. And at that point, it would be ready to be able to go out to a formal bid through C.G. Schmidt.
So at that point, we'd take the month of April to bid the project and bring all the bids back to you and get a final approval on what that total would be, and then start construction in May. And then that would take us through early the following year into the spring of the following year to get it done, toward the end, almost a year to build. So that's about the timeline at this point, with some time in here to make that decision about where the budget's going. So that's kind of the high level. You can see there's a lot of detail here that we've gone through to lay it out, and Joe does a nice job just making sure all the meetings are scheduled out as far as we need to get.
And one of the things we wanted to factor into this schedule was coordination with the city, making sure that we're having a lot of interaction with them, giving them plenty of opportunity for feedback on what we're approaching. We've got neighborhood and community input sessions so that we're looking to gather that information as well. So that by the time we take the package to the city, we should be in a position to be pretty confident that all of their questions have been answered.
We have done some preliminary work, working on a survey to nail down, exactly where buildings are on the site, and some soil borings as well. And as we talk about costs, it's one of the issues that's kind of pushing the number up a little bit. Any questions on the schedule at all? Okay.
So just a brief summary of the proposed options that we have on the table kind of now for us and the schematic designs that have been provided. So our option 5, and the numbers 5 before B, that's just the numbers and letters we've used because we've had a number of different designs and a lot of conversations back and forth, which number are making sure we're all referencing the same numbers and same designs. But we've narrowed it down to 3 plans. Option 5B, which is at our $5.5 million RFP that we went out to. The next design is at $6.5 million, which exceeds the approved $6 million. And then the third plan at $7.47 million. And I also want to add here that there were additional plans that were also presented to us that, believe me, I loved. But we're up in the $8 and $9 million ranges, which we kind of totally pulled off the table. But I'm not surprised by it because, as I previously mentioned, our staff has done a lot of homework prior to and research and visiting and conversations with other communities that have recently done projects like this, and even a few years ago, and their costs. Majority of them all were starting from new. So when you look at, we are planning to use our existing and adding on, the project cost is in comparison to theirs.
Shelley, what would the $8.9 million include? Just out there, I'm just wondering.
Sure, more program space, probably larger. Some of the rooms would be larger, a lot more storage. Trying to think.
And or not reusing the existing building. That was really the big jump. Yeah, tearing down the old building completely and replacing all that space with new space was up over $9 million. Yeah.
Would that include possibly an aquatic center?
No.
Not for $9 million.
Not for $9 million.
Well, I'm just asking. You never know.
Yeah. But I will say the one thing that all 3 of these.
Well, I'm sorry, I just thought maybe if you just dug a hole in the ground, let it fill with water, then they could do that.
Oh, don't even say that.
That's all. No.
Let's not even say that. No.
Yeah.
But all 3 of these designs allows for future expansion, and that's one thing that we're really excited about, because if it comes a time where, and when we look at our schools and their current structure, and we all know pools are a huge operation, a huge cost. If we look to consolidate or anything in the future, these designs allow for future plans, whatever those might be. We're not locked into landlocked into anything.
You'll see dotted lines on those plans if you look close. They're kind of small, but those are the areas you could expand. So, just to elaborate a little bit more on that, we looked at options where we literally chopped off the roof of the old building. We looked at options that added elevators to the second floor to make it more accessible, to kind of take advantage of that footprint, and then without having any existing building. I think if you added up all the options, including option 9, and then all the A's and B's and C's, we're at about 16 or 17 different approaches to the project, so.
So we need to look at sort of a new assessment of our budget and where we're at, and how potentially we could get to where we'd like to be, which is that 7.5 budget. Okay, so the recommended construction budget that we would need board approval on is 7.5 million, and we'll show you those designs in a little bit.
Yeah, and those are total project costs, so that 7.5 isn't just construction, it's design, it's equipment, it's furniture, all the other soft costs that we need to, so it's all inclusive, just so you know.
And it's actually 7.4
7.
something, so we round it up to 7.5. So where are we at? So the board previously approved a budget of 6 million. We would need $1.5 million more. Currently in our fund balance is a little over 6.5 million. And actually there's 6.9, however, we do have a couple $100,000 that is allocated already that's not usable dispensable funds. And things in there are like our Champion for a Child Scholarship Fund, some funding that our community groups have raised, I'm trying to think, and I think some transition program funding. So those are funds that we can't put towards the project. So you'll see we have a deficit of just a little under $1 million of $929,004. Now that does not include what we anticipate to have as a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year, at the end of the 2018-19 school year. So if you look, our yearly surplus that has contributed to Fund 80 balance, and obviously if you look and add up those numbers, it's not going to equal the 6.5 because there's funds prior to, but we look back to give the board and to give our community a perspective of where we've been at in terms of fund balance for the last several years. So you can see on average over the last 4 years, our fund balance has been at about 1.2 million, which means we are projecting for the end of this 2018-19, I've looked at where are we at. Obviously, we're only a few months into the year. We start July 1 like the district, so we have we've basically looked at July through October, our revenue and our expenses. Our expenses are pretty comparable, within $4,000 of each other. Revenue, however, we're up $40,000 from where we were at last year. So historically, we would anticipate our fund balance coming in right around that 1.2 million mark again. So our recommendation will be to the board to approve the 7.5 million for the new rec center construction project. You can see the fund balance, or the additional funds we needed, is the 950,000. If we have the anticipated 1.2, we actually will be still ahead and have about $280,000 left over in a fund balance at the end of 18-19. The project, however, will not conclude until probably February of 19-20, so we'll already be into then again a whole nother fiscal year in which we can contribute to the project.
Yeah, this cash flow is set up to show you that. In essence, at the end of fiscal 2018-19, or next summer, we'd only be partially into the project. We'd really only be into construction for a couple months. So that fund balance that you would accumulate up to that red line is, in enough time essentially to help with the cash flow on the project. So the money comes in plenty of time to pay for the construction, even if it's shorter lags. We're not done for another 7 months after that or more.
So from a banking standpoint, you're basically saying that the money would be there from the rec department because of future revenue coming in.
And I think it's important, we still are not borrowing any funds. The funds we will spend are funds we currently have and funds that we anticipate and having. Mr. Lee.
Have we looked at any of the costs associated with the new building once it's built? So
Operational costs?
Yeah, compared to...
Yep, Dan and I were just looking at that, and even with those costs, utilities, staffing that would go along with it, allocating money for capital improvement projects, because once we build, gonna need some maintenance, ongoing, projects, we'll still be able, within our current budget, cover the operational costs with no additional funds needed, no additional tax funds. And we bring in, and then what we're anticipating is the new programs or even rentals, being able to use those funds to help offset operational costs.
It works backwards to somewhere around $5 to $6 a square foot for operational costs for those items that Shelley mentioned. So it's electric, water, custodial supplies, custodial labor, some of the minor maintenance, although that's very low, the first 5 to 10 years in a new building.
Right.
But then you have to set aside money that's included in that $6 a square foot for future replacements, whether it's carpet or compressors or those things that you have to replace in less than that 20-year time frame. So,
Are there plans to make this building energy efficient with the materials you're putting in, as far as the heating? Is there going to be air conditioned, heating, air conditioning, LED lighting, things like that?
And one thing that we're working through, and that's part of the process with the design, is we want to be able to section off areas. So let's just say on a weekend, all you need is the gym that you can section off, and that's where, again, I rely on the experts, and Steve Brody will be brought in as well, too, so that we have those controls in place. So you're not heating or cooling an entire building when you only need a section.
we don't know what those numbers are yet. We literally haven't started to meet with the engineers. We're still moving big blocks of space around, as you can kind of see on the concept plans that we have now. But yeah, I mean, LED lighting now is almost a sure thing. Those all make sense no matter what now. We'll look at systems that with controls that will throttle down those areas, and maybe we'll look at things like carbon monoxide sensors that you can really throttle down the outside air that you have to put into a room if it's unoccupied.
Sure.
So there's some of those kinds of things that will really help the energy consumption go down. But we haven't designed them yet, and we haven't had time to put the numbers on what that means to you as far as operating costs.
That's why we hired you, because you're the experts and you know what the costs are going to be, and I know you'll come to us and say, this is what the costs are going to be, so I don't question that at all.
So are there plans to replace the current lighting that's in the building that we're reusing with LED lighting, or are we going to have a hybrid with old and new?
Well, some of that will depend on which project design we end up going with, because depending on which one will dictate which spaces are which, but I would imagine once the plan we'd like to lean for kind of pretty much guts that whole first floor, and sort of kind of rebuilds all that space out.
Yes, any area we would remodel in any significance, we would replace the lighting for sure.
Okay.
And we're meeting with Steve. We've got meetings set up, Steve Rody, to go through and look at those units that feed the existing building. They're fairly rudimentary. They're getting toward the end of their life, so those are some of the analyses that we still have to do.
My last concern is regarding landscaping. So I know a lot of times the city will have certain requirements when you do sorts of projects like this, and the landscaping costs can get to be frankly ridiculous. And so in the $7.5 million budget, how much of that is put towards landscaping? And do we have any sort of preliminary information from the city about what they would be looking for landscaping around this new building? What do they do?
Yes and no. We've met with the city, and they're actually very receptive of the project, and already talked about parking, because that always seemed to be a thing, and they were, they kind of directed us to only put in the parking you need, don't be building these big giant massive parking lots if you're not going to use it. And we've already talked about different strategies, instead of within the parking lot adding the islands and that kind of thing you can maybe do around the perimeter, which would help be more cost effective for us. So,
and easier to maintain.
With plowing and whatnot?
But just to some of the things that have already into the project that we found that have already factored into costs, the Survival Live House. We've had conversations with the fire department. Right now, they're not in a position to go towards a mobile unit. They're not necessarily opposed to it. However, They don't have any funding to contribute, and then they did bring up concerns with where the unit would be stored, and their experience with other communities that have had mobile units, if it's not stored inside, some have leaked, some have had critters inside, so they just aren't quite there yet. Maybe down the line, but that's again where we'd have some opportunity for growth within the building. But we have to build around this 5-lot house.
Oh, so we're keeping this, right?
We're keeping it.
We're keeping this, right?
Yeah, that's a change since we talked to you last.
Yeah.
And that drove some extra square footage, either in remodeling or a new building. Push the budget up as well.
Like when you look at 5 versus 4B, and you say a larger gym, can you, I don't want square footage, give me a comparison to one of our existing gyms, because that's what I'll visualize. You know me, I'm visual. So when you're looking at 5, what school?
Can we come back to that in a second? Oh, because there's 2 more things that have already factored in the cost, just to share, is steel tariffs, and that's kind of driving some of the costs. And then our soil boring findings, and the land. Many people don't know and that there was once a school on that property, and that building, and at the time it was closed, but the rec offices were once there in that old school building, and it burnt down. And then when it burnt down, no one was really sure what happened with what was left or things like that. So there were, and I don't know that it was that caused that, but there are some areas where they're going to have to dig a little deeper or put in some more structural sound footings to support things. So that factored in.
A lot of that area underneath the baseball diamond's actually fill material that you can't count on for bearing.
Yeah.
You have to go down to, more stable soil.
Okay.
So those are some things that have already kind of played into where we've had to make some modifications. And the other thing that's been great in working with them is, as we learned, they build in what are called soft costs once you move in. Furniture, like we've already said, all of our offices, for the most part, the only people that see them are us. Like those are places we can save costs. So if we need to shift those funds to more of the construction or the landscape, there are places that we can move funds around and make alterations. We're not locked in anything.
A lot of the equipment they already have, if you walk in, you can see it's all there. And they've been replacing it. It's in decent shape. There's some that needs to get replaced, but we'll draw a line between what's an operational replacement and what has to be new outfitting because you've got new space. So that's what we've done and included in those soft costs.
So now to Heather's question. So our first option, option 5B, and this is at the 5.5 million that we've set as a budget. You will see there's no track, and that's been one sort of non-negotiable for us. And even as we've had conversations with community members, that's what's gotten a lot of them really excited about this project. And that's really what's going to help us to bring people in that may not otherwise participate or come to our programs, things like that. So that's sort of a huge one. We won't have the space, we just won't have the spaces that we need. We're actually going to lose space compared to what we have now. With being here and our spin room and our fitness room over there, it's not a real viable option for us. So then the 6.5 million, this one does have the gym, and then this is too, I don't know if you have a good comparable for size.
Your schools, I don't know your schools as well as I should. I think one leans toward an elementary school size gym, and the other one's more of a middle school size gym. This is how you would imagine it. I would say that these guys can comment too with the cross courts. When you go from the second option, this one up to the $7.5 million option, those cross courts are actually big enough for adults or larger kids to actually play basketball and have some room. Otherwise, the 3-point circles are almost overlapping. There's really not much half-court space. So,
are you familiar with the Southwest YMCA?
It's been a while.
But they have the track and the gym.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, that's kind of
comparable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 7.4 is comparable to
2
that?
courts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty much you could host 2 elementary school games
Yes.
versus in the one above it you can do a game.
We'd still divide the gym, you'd still be able to divide, it's just gonna be, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
smaller, and we've already started to do things in both options, that will help to alleviate some things, like, we've talked about, bench seating in the hallways, you know, and with hooks, people can leave all their bags and things like that, versus bench seating in that we've seen in gyms or bleachers. So that helps to, give us some extra space to work with inside the area.
Okay.
The other thing too, with a smaller track, depending what you're doing in the gym, or with a smaller gym, with the track above, if it's smaller, you got some overhang. And that tends to cause some challenges, or limit programming.
For the multi-purpose meeting room, anticipate a capacity, and will that have the potential to have dividers to break it down into smaller space?
When we've walked them through kind of a lot of our spaces we currently have. That space we asked them to make comparable to, like this in 710 up on the 7th floor. Or the space that we formerly had at Parkway, which is kind of the old gym. And we want it to be kind of that. It's called a sort of a multi-purpose room, but multifunctional, that you could make it classy, like the tea we'd like to host there. But then you could also have meetings. You could take it down and have different dance classes there, and you know, some of it'll depend on flooring. We've even looked at options where at some rec centers they'll have half the room kind of the wood laminate floor, the other half carpeted. But then too, when we start doing dividers and things, that cost gets added on. And we found too, if you're going to do dividers, you really got to make them soundproof. Otherwise, you're limited what you can do so that things don't impede upon each other.
So the plans in general tried to designate more rooms that had, there were a big one and a small one, and a few of those, so you had a little more versatility with just the choice of rooms rather than dividing the rooms.
Also in the $6.5 million option 5, and I know it's a little hard to tell. One of the things we're really working hard to do is bring our preschool program, which has been a very successful program for us, and for often a lot of our kids. And one of the testimonials in our report speaks to our teachers in preparing kids for 4K, preparing them for school. We'd like to bring that program to us, and what we'd also like to do is in this option 5, you see. Their learning and center and education space is in one corner of the building. They actually have to physically leave the room and go down the hall for kind of the gross motor area. In the $7.5 million option, it makes it all one big room, sort of separated out just by their their little cubbies where they'd hang their coats and backpacks. And the neat thing we saw at another facility is in the evening they turn that gross motor space into space for adult fitness programs. And if we really want to even expand, having that early childhood space right next door, parents could work out while their kids are playing, all in the same space.
And it puts it closer to that outdoor playground too. It's a lot easier to staff efficiently when they're all there, they're all visible together.
Some other changes too between the two plans, storage, and I know that doesn't sound important, but it is huge, and especially when we want to use spaces in multi-use. It may mean 2 different sets of tables. You'll have educational type tables, and then you may have to roll those away and roll out tables that you would use for art classes. You got to have a place for all that stuff to go. Equipment. You wouldn't think about it, but carts with video equipment or light and sound type of stuff, all that takes up space. And then 2, having a dedicated space. Option 5 also doesn't allow us for our spin class to have its allocated space along with another space for fitness classes. We basically be locked in having them in the gym or that large multi-purpose room. So it really doesn't, the option 5 really doesn't provide us all the full capabilities and spaces programming that we'd like.
And the costs are really driven by square footage at this point when you look at it. So if you add the track in to the spaces, you start out with option 5. In total, it's about 38,000 square feet. 5B, sorry, I'll start there. 33,000 square feet for 5B. So it's 33,000. You jump up about 5,000 square feet in total, including the running track again, and then you jump up almost another 4,000 square feet. And it's fairly linear, although the track and the remodeling is about half the cost per square foot than a new building is. And so they kind of balance out, but that's really what drives the overall cost, because if you think about it, the site's about the same, and a lot of the spaces are the same, so the soft costs, the equipment don't change a lot necessarily, so you've got sort of those sunk costs, but it really is driven by square footage and what you need for the future. So those extra spaces in the bigger gym just make it versatile, more versatile for the future. So you don't walk in there and the first day you regret you made it too small.
So you're saying that by the end of construction, you will have covered basically the costs. So why don't we see option 4?
Here it is.
You know, why don't we see one more option and what we get
What's
with
it for?
another step up?
What's the next one?
The next one up.
That's what we want to see.
The next, after the 7 point,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
well, all right, we can do that.
Just to see what's out there. Because really, at 7.47 million, we're really not risking, I mean, there's nothing to, I mean, why wouldn't we?
So Shelley, you talked about it goes from 7.4 all the way up over 9. What is the difference? Like, is there 16 options, right, Dan? That's what you talked about. In there, I'm imagining there's some gradation, right, that goes from here all the way up to here. 9 would obviously not be doable within, right? Then we'd be incurring debt. Right? So what's the next gradation of what square footage, do you know offhand?
One of the pieces that we looked at in the more expensive options was they had a desire for a garage space for outdoor storage and for the 5 or 6 vehicles that they have as part of the program that are stored outside currently. So some of the more expensive options included space for 5 vehicles and storage that could be used for the outdoor play spaces and things like that. And as we were looking at budgets, that was just deemed, you know, we still have it on our master layout. There would be a space to put that garage in the future that still works with the plans that we're talking about here.
Would that be taking up parking spaces, or would
No,
that
it would actually go to the north of the parking lot that we have and be connected to the rest of the drives that we're already proposing. So it wouldn't be dismantling anything we're showing in any of these plans. It could be added in addition to. But that was a big piece that, you know, I don't know what the number on a 3,500 square foot garage and whatever came to, but that was a significant piece.
Yeah.
And then a couple of those other more expensive options we looked at if we just got rid of the existing building. And then obviously it's hard to make the case to let's dismantle usable square footage that's working for programs now only to rebuild a new spin room. Maybe it's a little flashier or a little different, but it didn't make economic sense to just wholesale get rid of that existing space and start over.
Right now, the improvements of that building are fairly modest. Roof line stays in place. It's really the exterior. We get a few more windows in the exterior to get those spaces so they're nicer inside with daylight, and then it really literally gets a paint job on the outside to sort of match the image of the new building a little bit closer. So we're not spending a lot of the exterior of that building.
And the other thing we considered is we still have programs going on. So if we completely demolish the existing building,
Right.
we lose all that space that we're currently using, and revenue, and a lot of those, a lot of our fitness classes are there, and that's population. Once you lose them, they may not come back. They tend to follow instructors, and not only could we potentially lose participants, we potentially could lose staff. For a lot of those people, that's either their job or supplements their income. And most people that do fitness like to work out, do not miss.
That 40-foot setback, is that a requirement?
So setback.
Go ahead, Joe.
It is, but in discussions with the city, there have been a lot of different options put out on the table, how to proceed with them. The way the site is zoned is a little irregular. It's a park site, but to have this sort of building on it isn't typical for a park zoning. So they're kind of working a couple of different ordinance sections to find the right balance. So they had offered that the 40-foot setback is probably a little unusual for a site like this with buildings on it, so it could potentially be negotiated as part of the potential rezoning. But as we were laying things out, we were finding we didn't necessarily need to take that space. So if that was one less discussion that needed to be had, then maybe that was the safer route to go. But we still have options.
The secure early childhood playground, 12,300 square feet, will go past that setback, and then the future potential for future expansion in 4B would go past that.
Correct.
Setback.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whatever route we choose, we probably want that permanent solution. In other words, so that when you go back for an addition, you can't get denied later on. And the existing building already encroaches that setback.
Yes.
Right.
And so they've offered to even rewrite or consider rewriting the zoning ordinance to
Oh, that
accommodate
sounds
the building.
wonderful.
We're going through some of that. And so,
Because that $1 million concrete wall goes right up to the sidewalk, all
Yeah.
the way to that easement on the
well, and
other
that's
side.
the other, our
so-
intention there is to remove that and then
Right,
treat
I
it
understand, but I'm just
respectfully.
saying that,
But,
yeah,
we
we don't
do
have
need
that
some
40-foot
space.
setback now.
We do need some space to take up that grade difference.
Right.
And so that's why a setback, we almost need some of that setback without spending a lot on a retaining wall.
And there's stormwater management issues as well, that we
Right.
need space for that can be into that setback area. So that buffer can be very useful.
And a playground, I think, is acceptable. You can go beyond that setback for a playground.
Yeah, it does already, so we'd be maintaining a lot of that.
We talked a little bit about potential for future expansion down the road. So the part that's being built here with the office space and the multi-purpose room, is it potentially, the way it's being built, is it potentially possible to add to the top of that in the future if we wanted to go that route? Or I guess what does that design look like?
Not right now.
Building up is a great theory that doesn't necessarily play out to be practical long-term.
Yeah.
We do, in most of the scenarios, have the stairs and elevator set up for the track access. We may need to reconfigure that in order to be able to address an expanded second story. We would have to put in structural capacity now for that.
Okay.
And we've had other projects where that's been done, and they found that just programmatically, trying to build on top of occupied space, there are safety issues, noise issues, and it just hasn't been practical for that. So
Makes
it
sense.
tends to be a safer option if you've got the land available to plan a single-story addition for the future.
Makes sense,
And
thanks.
that's where, Dan, where you said the kind of dotted line around the edges,
Yep.
that's all
Those 4 squares there are
buildable
future.
space
Yep.
based on what you surveyed so far.
Yep. Yeah, that's the intention right now. And it's sort of a tough building to go up on vertically, just because of the heights of the building. The gym's taller than the rest, and the front office may be a little, shorter, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense because you've got different roof heights all over the place, which make it a nice, interesting architectural view. And we'll bring those back to you, but it doesn't make it easy to expand on later.
No, that's right.
So I think that the 40-foot thing, definitely we should get that figured out now, so that, you're right, we don't go back and say, oh, let's build here, we never got that agreed upon, and now it's an issue. So I think we should definitely, I know it's another conversation we have to have, but I think it's better to have it now than we want to add something small on later, but then it becomes a big issue for us.
We agree.
The retaining wall cost removal is included in the $7.5 million, or any of these estimates. And then the only other question I have is regarding insurance. Do we see with a hanging track, is there like a special rider we have to get for our insurance policy, something because of the fact that it's a suspended system versus one that's not?
So for the client, Caitlin, and working with our insurance, but I mean, South Milwaukee has a track above their gym. Trying to think what other than the Y, and it might just be.
I'm not sure.
Valley's used to have
Yeah,
one too.
I mean, it may be like an additional rider policy you put on, but I mean, those are like, so when we start, I'm a little cautious about spending a lot, really overextending ourselves up front, because once we get into this building, there will be things that, you didn't think of, necessarily plan for, that I want us to be able to be financially prepared for. Or I know we talked about the garage, we've sort of taken that off, the planning, and haven't really even approached that with the city, where I'm a little apprehensive if we start doing that now, it could prolong this process instead of moving forward and taking that garage as like a phase 2 later on.
The track is planned, right? In 2 of these, there's a track, right?
Yes. 2 of them, there is a track, correct, yep.
So I'm just asking about, have we looked at what the cost of insurance would be for something like that? Because we don't have anything in the district currently. I understand that they exist and they're not like novel, but just looking at all costs, we're looking at long-term, if we have a suspended track, we're going to pay insurance on a building that has a suspended track for the life of that building, so I just would like to see if, it might be nothing, it might be almost nothing at all, but I just would be interested in knowing what it was.
Shelley, and then
Yeah, absolutely.
I would doubt it, that it's anything like, they would consider like anything, any other square footage. As long as it meets code.
Okay.
It's just that most of the insurance is based on the size of the building and the replacement value, and so I doubt it, but.
I don't think it's considered a hazard.
It has guardrail code requirements similar
Yeah.
to, say, the stairwell would, where you've got overhang spaces. So safety-wise, it would be very comparable to other typical construction.
Okay.
I have a couple more questions. One, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but is it South Milwaukee has like a community fitness center as part of their new facility? It's almost like a gym that the community can come belong to and come.
Yeah, it's part of,
Yeah.
built under their high school, middle
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, when they built it, they built like a community fitness center. Has something like that been considered as part of this?
It has been. We've sort of taken that off the plate, or off the plan right now, because for us, we really need to look at, is it even a viable option for us? In talking with, South Milwaukee has one, Shorewood has one, Greenfield High School has one. If you're looking for it to pay for itself, it doesn't necessarily do that, and especially for us that has a ton of competition in the fitness world already. If we're looking to provide it as a service to the community, or an amenity for staff, we could do that, but in terms of it being revenue generating for us, I don't see that work.
I'm not thinking revenue generating, I'm just saying that, we're spending 7.5 million, if you put in 7 point whatever million or whatever, as an option.
Another thing to consider, showers would have to be, and that all kind of, adds cost to it. But that's where too, we talked, and we've been working out with Jeff Thompson, about doing maybe some surveying, whether it's staff, community. Now that we have this, what else would you like to see? And having that space and funding available for sort of then phase 2 part of a project.
Yeah, I think that's important, Shelley. I also think that you have to keep an eye on the steel prices right now, because that's a major factor, a major factor.
And one other question I have, with the more expensive option, or options, would that revenue that's going to be used in these, does that take away from any future projects that the rec department might have? So it's $2 million that could have gone to something else that now will go into here, and that you have to then build up a reserve to maybe fund some other projects?
As we're projecting out, we'll already, going with the other option, have 200 plus fund balance. If we continue tracking where we are with our revenue, we'll continue to have that 1.1 million in our fund balance every year, and that's really not a healthy fund balance, over healthy fund balance for us. So I think us investing it up front and then working towards, right now, we don't have any other future big projects on the horizon, but that's where too I would caution us going all in into some of these $8 million projects with some of those unknowns. We'd like to plan for the future, but there's things that, we're not sure of. Depending how spring baseball plays out, if we lose, space out at the athletic complex, adult softball, we may have to look at, building a field somewhere, or We've had the ongoing conversation about soccer fields and where are those going. So I think if we move forward somewhat cautiously and not going all in at the rec center right now, we will have funds available for future projects if needed.
Shelley, based on the rec department's last few years, I don't feel that there's any issue as far as being able to pay back that particular money. I think that you have run a very, very good budget in your department with your people, and I think we've all noticed that. It's one of the very few areas that we haven't had too many hiccups in. So, thank you.
And then the 7.47, that is guaranteed, that's the cost, or could that fluctuate?
Well, we would work toward, we haven't bid anything yet, obviously, but, we would have to work toward that budget. Now, we talk about other expenses, so the exterior of the building, for example, is a fairly modest look to the building. So there may be some other options that, we could bring back that are either longer lasting or more durable. I mean, they're fairly durable now, but they're not very expensive, really, and the choices you have at that level are a lot less. So that is one place that we could bring back some options that wouldn't increase the budget a lot, but $50,000 to $100,000 on a building that size could make a difference in how the building looks for the next 50 years.
But that would come back to the board again for approval before
when
that was expanded.
When the discussion came up for the first vote, I asked, when it was $6 million, were we approving a $6 million building, or were we approving a $550,000 building with potential for a cost overrun?
So the way that we did this last time was that it was not to exceed. The total cost was not to exceed. So when this would come back to us, it would be not to exceed again, and that would be total all-in costs.
And that's what I'm asking, so it's a 7.47. If that's a construction cost, we might have to do a not to exceed $8 million, because then we're looking at potential cost overrun. Or steel prices, are uncertain.
That's something to consider. We'll have to talk about that between now and Monday, to see if we want to do that. Yeah, this is a pretty tight budget. I mean, it really is. I mean, because we knew we were over our approved limit already. So there's 5% contingency in the construction dollars, and another couple percent in the soft costs, and that's what we have in there right now.
Can you tell us what the increase in steel costs have been from the original budget to this budget? What amount we're looking at?
It's in the last 4 or 5 months, we've looked at about a 10 to 12% increase in material costs.
Okay.
For the steel. And that includes steel studs, as well as the framing, the structural red iron that we use to put the building up.
So is there a concern about the time frame between we actually procure those materials and that increase getting worse?
Yeah, we don't. No crystal balls are available, but we think it's steadily going up, not jumping up. And if you look at our bidding time, it's out about 5 months. We've tried to include that amount, going up at about the same rate. And if you think about it, it's 10 to 15% of one line item, and even the material cost is only about 40% of that line item. So it's a big number, but it's not big in the whole scheme of things. So.
Plus the fact right now, with the referendums that were passed in some of the districts, you have an awful lot of people out there that are going this way and that way with companies like yourself to build those projects.
That's a bigger issue in my mind, is just the capacity, and then the capacity leads to higher prices.
Correct.
And I think that's another good thing about this, is that, the sooner we get out the bid, we're going to be ahead of a lot of those referendums.
Right.
In bidding, and then we'll lock in some of those prices earlier.
Good.
Is there any concern about manpower to do this work with the Foxconn and other projects that are going on in the area, about when you're going to bid that you just don't have people who can do the work until 6 months down the road afterwards?
Yeah, and that's kind of the same question. I mean, that drives prices up, but just to get the work done is the other end of that question, right? So as we bid it, we go out and we'll go through with Steve and the rest of the staff here, say who we're going to ask to bid, that we know are capable. We have a pre-qualification process internally that we go through, so everybody that we end up seeing a bid from, we know at least has a proper safety record, they're financially viable, and then we'll sit down with the lowest 2 or 3 bidders sometimes and go through that question.
Okay.
Question and answer, find out what other jobs they have.
Yeah.
And because we're really the largest Milwaukee-based construction manager, we got a lot of pull with those guys. And so we work through that. We identify, if they get the job, which foreman are we going to get? Because we know which ones are good and which ones aren't from various companies. So very thorough. Our Joe Hoffmeyer, our project manager, I think you maybe met once, goes through all of that. And so we ask all those questions ahead of time, so we don't run into that.
So Shelley, what do you need from us tonight?
I need you to take some time to think about this.
Okay.
And we will be back next Monday
Okay.
with an action item asking the board to approve an increased budget for the project.
Okay.
And I think at this point, Shelley, your recommendation next
Yes.
would be to come back with the
The
7.47.
7.47. And the thing I do want to put out there and kind of addressing these questions is Joe has put together a timeline for us. And so far, we've been okay, but every hiccup or every setback puts that timeline further back, and then we run the risk of, if those bids aren't getting out, or that running into some of that competition with these upcoming referendums and projects. And I don't want that to force us one way or another, but we're also at the mercy of the city in getting on their schedule and getting in front of them and the plan commission, and a lot of moving parts and pieces that we need to line up.
And winter conditions too. We want to get that in the ground as early as we can to avoid, those winter costs.
Just want to confirm then that what we're thinking about for the decision next week is a not to exceed.
Yeah, and that's how we're used to working.
Okay.
We figure out how to fit the project
7.47,
within that number.
not to exceed 7.47.
Well, that's
Or 7.5.
We'd round up
Is it
to
all
7.5?
7.5?
Yes.
Right.
Or is the not to exceed 7.5?
Not to exceed 7.5.
Not to exceed
Not
would
to
be
exceed.
7.5.
Okay.
Not to exceed 7.5.
Any additional questions?
Yes.
Yep, Noah?
Community communication regarding this. So obviously this is different from what we originally were talking about as far as the cost. And I know we have committee meetings on the timeline. I saw that. That's great. But I think communicating the change in cost and what is involved in that, why there is a change in cost, why we have a $1.5 million increase in what we originally approved will be important. And so is there a plan beyond the community meetings to mass communicate that?
Yep, Beth and I are already working on sort of the narrative, and where were we and how did we get to where we are now, and the hows and the whys and everything, so we can put that out there and let people know. And that's, once we kind of know the direction of the district next week, then we'll start communicating that out, whether it's via monthly newsletters, and we'll use multiple, because we know our followers aren't necessarily school district followers or
Right.
things like that. And I think it's important, a lot of our communication has been to the people in the area of the rec center, but really getting the message out district-wide, because this center will be for the entire, school district.
When are we going to get like some virtual tours and some aesthetics from the outside? I just want to make sure this is a shining
Do the
jewel.
class.
We do, I will say, we do have, the behind the scenes is constant with this, and with our staff, we have a conference room that has absolutely no windows, and that's where the secret embargoed preliminary plans are, but already just talking, because our entire operation and how we do things is going to change when we're in this building, because now all of our programs will be with us, and we'll have spaces that we can operate 7 days, almost at 24/7, and just those conversations with our front office staff and our staff in general, like, we gotta start thinking big programs, like, but they gotta get a visual. And I know I've even said to these guys, like, I need a visual, like, when you show me and start talking square feet, what does that look like to me? So, we do have some preliminary plans, and they're really good.
Yeah, what we want to do though is we'll once there's a decision made, the direction made, we'll come back. We've promised monthly updates on where we are. So I suspect to get to that point, it's going to be after the first of the year, before you actually see something.
Then we get
We need some like
Eventually, maybe.
some video of the build, and so we can present a nice, really neat package on how everything went together, and, you know, all the hard work that's put into
And
this.
that's another piece of this, Dan and his team, and working with Beth and our team, and is messaging that out and showing, you know, we're like, we gotta get the shovel in the ground and then start, once as that whole process goes, so people can kind of follow along.
Yeah, and you'll get monthly update, or weekly updates, sorry, that are one-pagers to kind of, if you can't get out to the job site, you'll see kind of what's happened and a few photos of the progress, and so it'll be a number of different ways. That's just one that will keep you updated as we move along.
I just need to clarify this. So the 5.5 was the original construction cost that we estimated when we voted to not exceed 6 million. Is that 7.4, that's an additional 1.9 million in construction cost?
And materials.
Project
And
cost.
space.
Project cost.
But then our not to exceed is not 7.47 million. Our not to exceed is going to be the higher number. A higher number?
7.5 million.
Yeah,
No.
they're doing comp.
Yeah, that's what they
7.5
said.
is the not to
They
exceed
said-
number, yeah.
But-
And within that, there are contingencies for things like.
Right, but I'm saying when we originally voted on it, it was a 5.5 million construction with a not to exceed 6 million.
And we
Project
chose to
cost.
go with the 5 point, we could have went right away and put out the RFP at the 6 million.
Well,
As a district, we chose to.
I guess what I'm saying is that we're showing a construction cost difference of almost 2 million, but our not to exceed is not going up 2 million.
So the amount that we originally approved of $6 million was the one they could have gone to, but they were trying to be conservative on their bid, and so they did 5.5 million for that. So, but the amount that we're going to approve, or the amount that we put forward on next money will be not to exceed 7.5 million.
So, right, I understand it, but I guess what I'm asking is why is this 5.5 million in here when our original vote was not to exceed 6?
Well,
We're showing the 7.47 million, but our not to exceed is less. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So,
Right, so you're saying, Gary, what I hear you saying is that there's not the same kind of room built into
Yeah.
the not to exceed as there was the first time that it came around. And I think when we were just originally, and I'll let you answer this one, Dan, when we were originally looking at it, they went out to bid at under that to see what that would net us, right? So we saw what that would net us, and we went, ooh, boy, that's not enough. So they said, okay, go ahead and go up to what was the not to exceed at the 6. Let's see what that nets us. And then as they did some of the surveying, and as they got some more information, and as they really started to now be in the physical space, it's different when you're going off of no information.
Right.
Then they've said, ooh, really, if we want to maximize this, we'd have to increase to what would now be proposed at 7.47. So when it was just an idea, it was different than now that this would be the actual, like, this is
our
pretty
plan.
solidified as the plan.
Yeah,
versus
there
the
really
original
wasn't
one.
any plan that corresponded to the $6 million. That's
was
the
just
thing.
a-
I understand.
Yeah.
And part of that too was at that point, we didn't know where we were ending up budget-wise, because we were in
Right.
17-18's year still. So we didn't know what our fund balance was going to be at that time.
Right,
Yeah.
so at that time, we were looking
Yeah.
at costs that were less actual than these, right? So now, if
Yeah.
you're saying not to exceed 7.5, that is a safer call than saying before 5.5
I understand
with room to go up to 6.
Shelley, I just have a few more things to say. Do you have any more
No,
questions?
I would just would have presented the 5.5 million differently then. Then your cost was probably, what, 5 million for that one?
No, it was
No, it's, 5.5, yeah.
I guess.
So, getting back to communications, I think that you and your staff have done a fantastic job, and I think that what I see in front of us and what I hear in front of us right now, what Bill referred to as a shining star, I think we need to take and really use that for this district, because it's like, it's pumping new energy into this district. And there's a lot of things that have been happening in the district, but now this is something really, really positive that we need to say, this is ours, this is where we're going, this is what it does. So, good job, for your staff and you.
thank you to the board for your support, and, because without you guys, this wouldn't be happening, so.
So you'll be here next week,
Yep,
Monday?
next
Okay.
Monday.
And you guys will finish up any of the little minutia that needs to happen between now and then
Yes.
have any, will you be coming next Monday as
Yep,
well?
I'll be there.
Okay, great.
If there's any questions in between,
Yeah, can we start buying bricks?
I mean, we'd like to
Like
have
your
it
name
all
on
hashed
one?
out, pretty much questions and things like that, so that when we come Monday,
Yep.
we can get moving forward and we can give them direction and let them start running.
The one thing, because we're looking at this to be finished, and you're talking about the better materials that could be used on the outside of the building to improve the longevity of the building that would add $50,000 to $100,000 to the cost.
Yeah, it's a matter of whether you use that out of a contingency or you buffer the number, but I think what Shelley's recommending is just stick with the 7.5 and.
Because I'd hate to skimp on this end of it, and then 15 years down the road, we have to replace the exterior or portions of it because it is now deteriorated to the point where it's useless. It makes more sense to spend the money when you're doing this major project now and to spend an extra $100,000 now instead of it probably cost that or more to replace it as the building's in situ when you have to bring crews in and all that sort of stuff. So,
And that will be something that we will, once we start working through all those pieces with them, is really prioritizing, and there will be things that are non-negotiables, like some of those structural pieces or the outside.
Get a nice
where we-
gym floor.
Nice gym.
Don't skimp on the basketball court.
Well, that's a big part of the conversations, and we will bring the board in and our staff in to say, like, okay, we have to have this, what can we give over here? You know, and it's a delicate balancing act, but the way they have it all laid out in the budget tracker, and it shows you what you have left and where, and what they've estimated in all the different areas. I mean, our staff knows, you know, your storage rooms may just be a big old empty room because we're not putting shelves in now because we need to do it, and that's just one example, you know, but, there'll be certain things that.
It's okay, ladies, it's okay.
We'll get the shelves. But obviously, there's this thing that you can't skimp on. Right, yeah.
if it was needing an extra $100,000, like that's something I see as a long-term useful investment of those funds, when I think it would cost more than that to have to go and do it afterwards. I don't want to have to see a reduction other than, that's what I'm saying at 7.5 million, I don't seem like that wasn't included, and so I'd rather see 7.6 and then we can get it done right instead of
We
having
can
to
talk
skip
about
on
that
it.
tomorrow and see what we want to do.
Don't skip on the elevator. We don't want any
No.
violations.
Well, no, and I mean,
Premium quality elevator.
kind of wrap it up, but that's part of all of our, you know, when we went out, we didn't go into this like, let's just do this. You know, we went and talked to people, lessons learned from those that have done in the past. That was one of the things, the elevator, like, make it big enough that the fire department can fit the stretcher on, because they didn't think about, and that was a costly fix they had to make after the fact. So, you know, we've kind of already brought that up to them, like, that's a must-have, you know, that's one of those things that we're not gonna skimp on, but, you know, if we, I don't know, they say you can put in this fancy handrail up the steps, nope, just give me the cheap handrail that'll, you know, do the same thing, so we'll work with them on that.
Great. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions? If not, we're looking to adjourn. So,
Move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor, aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.